Time manipulation of a hurricane on that screen. That's exactly what you're looking at.
But when you look at these frequencies, it's almost like they're all triggered at the same time. They're all coming alive at the same time. And are those happening from like some sort of machine or some sort of technology that's turning on and emitting these frequencies to literally push this hurricane in this direction?
Absolutely. That's a completely coordinated network. It's an AI-controlled, coordinated network.
Oh my goodness.
I will tell you, just from the standpoint of talking about rapid intensification, which you've all heard us use, this is the first time in my memory I used the term extreme rapid intensification, when a hurricane went from 80 miles per hour to 180 miles per hour in less than 24 hours. It's really extraordinary. And see, these are some of the other historical moments for Milton. It makes the third landfalling hurricane in Florida this year. 2 within 13 days, is tied for most on record. 5 U.S. landfalls this season. That's the second most on record, and we're not done with the hurricane season till November 30th. And the 10th major hurricane, which is a Category 3 or higher, to make landfall in 8 years.
Over time, the body will then begin to adapt and remain in an adaptive state until the conditions improve. The human body is part of nature and assumes at some point balance will be restored, so adaptations are designed to be temporary. So weather modification of any kind blocks the Earth ecosystem from producing what it needs to heal itself and to then remain healthy. Sometimes the Earth needs to be hydrated to heal a destructive growth, like a dryness on the skin. Sometimes the Earth needs to be dry to heal a destructive growth, like a fungus. Sometimes the Earth needs to organize a complex blend of moisture for the right conditions to heal. But what is being healed is almost always something humans have manufactured, which is not compatible or cooperative with nature, like completely covering the land with asphalt so that the soil cannot breathe. If the Earth's immune system detects it needs a lot of moisture to dissipate something heavily contaminating the air, it makes sense that you could anticipate hurricane-like conditions of water and wind. Does that make sense to you? Today is Thursday, October the 10th, 2024, and I'd like to share with you my take on conspiracy theories and the people who populate them online. A theory is a critical aspect of the scientific method. In order to conduct any kind of research, you must first have a question and hypothesis, which is a theory or idea about what the answer might be. From there, you begin the process of testing the hypothesis to determine whether it is true or false, and in the process, make some observations and discoveries to prove or disprove the hypothesis. At that point, it is no longer a theory. It is either true or not true. The problem with conspiracy theories is that there is typically no reason or use for engaging in the process of research and investigation other than to prove another entity, agency, or person to be wrong in their own theory or hypothesis. What would be someone's motivation to do this using social media in 2024? The answer is subscribers, which converts into money and or popularity. There are people literally dying as a result of the actual use of engineered processes, equipment, and weapons that are designed to be antagonistic toward natural, environmental, and human systems. Therefore, the focus of any theory about that use must be to stop harm to people, which necessarily must include yourself as a motivating factor to continuing to seek the proper evidence and people responsible to hold accountable for uses which they know cause harm. No one should be able to convince you that what you are actually feeling, seeing, or hearing in toxic and physically painful ways is not true. They can say they don't understand what it is or what is causing it, at which point you can respectfully decline any additional support or advice from that individual on that issue. It must be something you are experiencing yourself to avoid being trapped in useless arguments about what you know personally is the truth. 100% of the time, you will ultimately find you are not the only person. What you then do next is critical to finding the causes and stopping the problems. A member of a climate change focused Facebook group I was invited to join shared some videos and other information this morning and named Dane Wigington as a person of interest. So I went ahead and watched the first few minutes of the video to hear how Dane describes his qualifications and background in geoengineering research, and then did some research of him on my own. He is interviewed by Cap Chatfield, who is a self-pronounced online pastor and entrepreneur, which is a problem in and of itself I won't address here. Cap describes Dane as a trusted expert and introduces him as the lead researcher for geoengineeringwatch.org. This is what Dane says about himself.
So without further ado, Dane, if you could explain to our audience a little bit about your credentials, your career, and why you are a trusted voice, that you would say, in this topic, and also why we should be paying attention to what's happening right now and be critical thinkers about it.
On the issue itself, this is the most destructive interference in creation, life support systems by the human race ever launched. And again, superseding everything else at this moment. We could exceed that with nuclear cataclysm, of course. But right now, this is the greatest single detrimental factor with creation, nature, web of life. I did not want this battle. I'm not an activist. I'm not politically oriented. I grew up in smoggy Southern California and was striving to get out of that environment, moved to Northern California, middle of the wilderness, which is where I live now, off-grid home, wind, hydro, solar power. It was the cover article of the world's largest renewable energy magazine. I'm a former employee of Bechtel Power. That's the largest engineering firm in the world, very corrupt company, like Halliburton. I left at a young age because of that, never was under anybody's thumb since. But I was restoring habitat here on the east side of Lake Shasta in Northern California. I manage a big habitat reserve here. And when I began to lose massive amounts of my solar power uptake with a huge solar system from whatever these aircraft were emitting, I knew that could not be just, quote, condensation. I began to research the issue, Cap, and found mountains of data on geoengineering, climate engineering, solar radiation management. I was surprised I had not heard of these programs before, and that's no accident. The governments don't really want the public to understand this, but I searched.
The screenshot I am sharing is of a court filing. This is not a hearing or trial and does not mean the court was even willing to hear this case. It was legitimately filed with the courts in California, and you can look up the case number if you're interested. I'm sharing it because it is clear that the only thing Dane is focused on is proving himself and his theories against people who want to discredit him and therefore greatly reduced his audience or following, assuming he has any. He is not focused on trying to restore the function of his wind, hydro, solar powered home so that he can live. He is not focused on the health impacts of the technologies he has found on himself or anyone else. He is not focused on accusing people responsible for causing harm to himself or other human beings by identifying those responsible and holding them legally accountable for these actions, civilly and or criminally. And for these reasons, I would throw out anything either he or Cap Chatfield, as a follower of Dane's work, have to say, because it simply is not useful in achieving my personal goals for restoring my family, my community, the community surrounding us, and quite frankly, the entire earth to a state of wellness, safety, protection, and happiness. I hope that makes sense.
Let's go on and show you what we're looking at as far as rainfall out of this thing. The highest number we could find was in St. Petersburg. Generally, it was about 5 to 7 inches, but we're looking at 18.3 inches in the last 24 hours. 5 of those inches fell between 8 and 9 p.m., making this a 1 in 100 year rainfall event. Other rainfall totals that we have come up with, Clearwater Beach had 14 inches, Claremont 13, Ormond Beach 13, and a little bit more than 11.5 inches of rain in Tampa. The other historical part of this, the tornadoes that were with this system. 38 tornadoes. We always expect tornadoes, especially in the northeastern quadrant of the storm, as this was as Milton came on shore. But to have 126 tornado warnings issued by the National Weather Service in Miami, that has never happened before either.
This is a challenge. To accept it, follow this link, which is also found in the description. And today, I'd like to do a video on ecosystems to allow you an opportunity to determine whether or not these independent pieces that I will share with you as video clips constitute an ecosystem, which means that these each work and interact with each other to support their survival. If you are able to determine the individual parts that I will share with you as video clips constitute a system, you must consider that the system is functional because it is surviving. But my question then is whether or not the system is healthy, and if you are part of it, whether you believe it is healthy for you and the people around you to continue to be part of it.